Oh.
I'm muted. Yes.
Oh, I was like, oh no.
I did that earlier and then I forgot to do it. So that is on me. Morgan, do you have the doc?
I've got the doc.
Okay. Big episode, lots to talk about. So we'll have to dive into that. So I hope you're ready for it. Can you hear my fan at all? You can hear a fan? It's getting very hot.
No, I cannot.
So I'm hoping that I can have a little bit of a fan going here. Okay. Good to know. That is good to know. Okay, we are going to be talking about My Adventures with Superman, the death of Clark Kent. R.I.P. I guess for now anyway. So we are going to be talking about that. So if you have any thoughts in the chat, feel free to share them and we will get to your thoughts. So I guess we should just, without any further ado, I guess we should just get started.
Let's do it.
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is 𝙈𝙾 𝘼𝙪 boardroom or ballroom because really?
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And we are live and wired on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel on the Supergirl Radio Facebook page to discuss the Season 2 episode of My Adventures with Superman titled The Death of Clark Kent. I should have maybe brought some taps or something as a sound effect. Did they play, is it taps?
Dun, dun,
They
dun.
So R.I.P. Clark Kent. Hopefully we'll see him again. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have to talk about it. But so this episode has a max description that reads, quote, Lois and Jimmy confront Kara and make a plan to rescue Clark. Didn't do such a great job, but continuing on. Meanwhile, Brainiac delves into Superman's mind to figure out what makes him tick and how to tear him apart. Exclamation point, unquote. So lots of Brainiac in this one. I think I said initially that I wasn't like wowed by Michael Emerson's Brainiac, which is something of a shame for me because I love Ben Linus from Lost, but I've really come around to his Brainiac performance. I think he is starting to really make me scared of Brainiac, which I think is a remarkable thing. It started off kind of, I didn't know what to think about him. Now I'm like, okay, this guy is a force to be reckoned with.
He's spooky.
So Brainiac is a pretty good villain, in my opinion. So what do you think about his big plan to take over Kal-El's body? He says the machine that houses his AI is dying, and if he's going to rebuild the empire, he needs a new body. Morgan, what did you think?
I feel like since his body is just that robot and he is very smart, could he not just have constructed a new robot instead? I'm not saying, listen, the Clark taking over Clark's body plan, brilliant. Obviously, I'm not here to like toss shade on Brainiac, but it does feel like just building a newer robot would be easier.
Yeah, if he just wanted to transfer his, like if it was the AI that was the problem, you could just put it in one of those like drone robots.
He's like, this robot body is calling it quits. Instead of, I'm going to upgrade to a human body. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess if you're gonna, it's a Kryptonian body. So
yeah, I was about to say, not a human body. Yeah,
pretty slow. But I mean, I feel like the easier way, the path of least resistance would be to just upgrade his robot body. But I guess then he's not Superman.
So this is just me. This is just me asking questions. If he needs an organic life form, is he hoping to, because he wants to rebuild the Empire. How is he going to do that if he doesn't have Kryptonians? So that would be the only way that I would think. So what I'm spelling out for people is I'm wondering if this is such a weird thing. I can't believe I'm asking this question. Is he trying to reproduce Kryptonians?
Like, do they have the technology to just kind of like do that?
Or does he have to, like, because in some versions of Krypton,
in some versions they just grow the bebés.
Yeah, they grow them. They don't reproduce them in the
Yeah.
human way that we do. So I don't know what he needs in terms, like, is there a reason? I don't know, why am I talking? This is a weird thing to talk about.
Can he like grow the babies in his little lab? Like, what?
I don't know if he has like a Genesis chamber or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
So
He's just got one hidden away. He's like, listen, I've been family planning. He just like grabs out this Genesis chamber.
So that's the only thing I can think of, is that why he would need like an organic life form versus just another robot is that it had something to do with possibly rebuilding Kryptonian genetics of some kind. That's my only guess.
That could make sense. Yeah, it was the whole thing was like a little. I was like, I don't know about your plan, but he did sort of take over Clark. He does get in there with the Black Mercy, which I was when I saw that he was using the Black Mercy, I was like, I know about that.
We are familiar with Black Mercy as it pertains to the Supergirl TV show and the season 1 episode in which Kara gets taken over by the Black Mercy. Now, the Black Mercy I thought was a little different here. What did you think about this take of the Black Mercy and how it was used?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, it's a little similar to how they used it on Supergirl, which is like the idea of going into his Clark's mind and sort of mind controlling, but Brainiac being able to be in his mind and kind of manipulate it and even implant some false memories. That felt new to me. And then obviously, spoiler alert for a couple weeks ago for everybody, but the twist at the end where you think that Clark has broken free and has said like, those aren't my memories, and then he's still in his mind and he's like running to his family like as a child, thinking that like Krypton is still there or that they're in a wheat field for some reason. Maybe he's combined them. He's like, when Krypton was in Kansas.
I mean, they might have had farming before Krypton went kablooey. They may have tried their hand at being farmers. I don't know.
You never know. But I thought that was like a clever way of the show to do it, because I was like, oh man, good for Clark. Snaps for Clark. Like he got out. And then you realize, no, he didn't. And you're like, dun, dun, dun.
And in that moment, I think they use the Black Mercy in kind of the more traditional way, where he sees this vision of what he would have wanted, or what his ideal version of Krypton was, because he sees himself as a little boy and he runs towards his Kryptonian family, his mother and father and his uncle and his cousin Kara, who is a little girl, I think. So actually, yes, I believe, I don't know if they would have been the same age at this time or not, but he imagines this, I guess, as his ideal perfect Kryptonian life. So that to me is a more traditional use of the Black Mercy. So the idea that they're using this, what do they call it in the episode? A Kryptonian device that is like attached to their foreheads, and then their eyes turn black, and it does allow Brainiac to see and interact with Cal's memories. That did feel new to me. I'm not opposed to it. I thought it was kind of an interesting take. So I think my theory is that maybe in the next episode, we'll see Cal live out that sort of idealized Kryptonian vision of his family. And hopefully we'll see him fight it a little bit to get out of there. So I don't know, this puts them in a very, very dangerous position, because Brainiac seems to have succeeded in what he set out to do. and that now has forced. And I wanted to get your opinion on this. I don't have a screenshot for it. I thought I did. Apparently, I do not. But this puts them in a situation because Cal is not the only one who is infected, I guess, by the Black Mercy. Someone else in the episode chooses to use the Black Mercy, and that's Lois. By the end of the episode, she uses the Black Mercy device and says she's going after Clark. So what do you think about this decision?
I thought that was such a surprising decision. I didn't expect it. I don't even think I clocked her picking up that Black Mercy device as they were like all the chaos was happening in the spaceship. But I thought that was a really cool beat to the story that Lois would be like, okay, like if this is how they got to Clark, like I'll go in there too and I'll just get him back. And I'm like, yeah. I like it when Lois does things that are a little bit suicidal. She's just like I'm either gonna win or I'm gonna die. And then she just like throws it on. They're like, Lois, we've talked about this.
It's maybe not the smartest thing she's ever done. She
Possibly
doesn't know
not.
what it is. She doesn't know what it's going to do to her. I guess that shows how much she loves Clark, that she's willing to risk her life in order to do that.
She did jump off that building that one time just to prove she was right. So it does feel character correct at least.
And I guess after seeing the Lois with the false memories that Brainiac had shown Clark, who was very dismissive of him and very negative and rejected him and all those false memories, it's good to see the real Lois who did care about him and who is willing to risk her life for him. Though I don't know what that's going to look like. Are they going to be in the same place? Is Lois going to be in his idealized Kryptonian vision? Is she going to have her own Black Mercy experience? Is Brainiac going to be part of her Black Mercy experience? Can he do that even though he's got Cal's body now? I don't know how that works. I'm very interested in how they're going to depict that. I have questions about how the Black Mercy is going to function with two people under the Black Mercy. I guess before we move on, do we have any questions in the chat that we need to get to?
I did see a good question from Rachel. I think that does kind of bring up some stuff. Why wouldn't he take over Kara's body? I think that's a great question because Brainiac's plan is to take over Clark's body and then like remake Krypton. But if he only needed a Kryptonian body, why couldn't he just use Kara's?
Well, I think maybe there are possibilities. I don't think he tells us this. But I think if I was going to read into Brainiac's character as depicted on this show, Kara's a little too close to him. He actually does seem to have an emotional connection, as however a robot controlled by an AI can have an emotional connection. He does seem to have some feelings and care for Kara as his daughter. And so I don't know if he'd be willing to do that for his daughter, because what I thought was really interesting about this episode with Brainiac is that there's a point where Brainiac and Kara are fighting, and Brainiac is speaking to her. And the way they did this, I thought, was so well done. He stops speaking in the robotic voice, in like the modulated voice, and Michael Emerson sort of seeps through as he's talking about how much he cares about Kara and loves Kara and thinks of her as his daughter. It's almost like his, quote, humanity, even though he has none, sort of comes through in that moment. And so I think there is a line that maybe he won't cross with her in that. And also Kara's been kind of rebellious and hasn't really worked out for him. She hasn't done exactly what he wanted her to do.
No.
She refused to destroy certain worlds, so he forced her to comply. So I
And
think
also, he didn't like any of those worlds that she suggested. She was like, I love the hawk people world. He's like, hawk people? Really, Kara? Is that what we're doing?
really, you think these people are special?
That's so mean girls of him to be like, really, the hawk people, Kara? Let's be serious.
Yeah, so I think that he's probably too close to Kara and that she did not follow his instructions. And so he needs somebody he can manipulate. And I guess for Kal-El, he's figured out his weakness. And so he can play on that. So I would like to think that Kara has no weaknesses and there's there's nothing that he can do to manipulate her. But that's not true. Kara has weaknesses. So that would be my answer to that question. That's a reach. I don't know. I don't think we've gotten a confirmed answer about that, but that would be my guess.
I did see Mind the Gap says, well, doesn't he basically take over Kara's body already? I guess that is a good point because he has maybe not taken over her body, but he's certainly kind of overridden her mind, it seems like, to have her destroy all these planets that he didn't think were, acceptable to be in the Empire.
Yeah, he did do some of that. And I was kind of confused about the memory mention because Kara mentions that he wiped her memories, but she still seems to remember everything. I was a little confused about that. She remembered the planets. Maybe she didn't remember that she had done it to those that she had destroyed those worlds. But she remembered Jimmy Flamebird.
She sure did remember Jimmy Flamebird.
So she did remember all of that. But so I was very confused about the memory wipe of that. But memory wipes typically on TV shows are very confusing anyway. Because
that is true.
Nobody ever lays down any rules about what this
we remember what happened to poor Alex. Or unlike Alex who didn't remember anything, basically.
So my request to any TV show is just don't do the memory wipe. Just don't do it. Never ends well as a storyteller and as a viewer. Just don't do memory wipes. They're no good.
Just stay away. Just stay away from them. You're gonna think I can do it great, and you're going to be wrong.
And you're going to fall into the traps everyone who writes a memory wipe ends up in. So I did get a little confused about that, but it seems like Brainiac has chosen another Kryptonian to manipulate and restart Krypton and rebuild his empire again. Let's see if there's anything else that we need to address. Rachel also asked, why isn't Allura there with Zor-El? It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, that is a good question.
She's not in the picture or the image that we see in the idealized Kryptonian vision. Brian asked, do we ever find out what happened to Jor-El's eye? If we did, I don't remember.
Oh, no, I don't think we did.
If anybody in the chat has an idea about that, let us know. It would refresh our memories on that if it has happened. Let's see if there are any other thoughts. Let's see. A lot of people are talking about Superman, the animated series, and Justice League Unlimited. Mind the Gap says this Brainiac is really similar to the Brainiac in Superman, the animated series. I could see some of that. That Brainiac was very much associated with Krypton and was kind of Brainiac was a maniac on that show as well. So I think that is a fair comparison. Okay. There are some good thoughts in the chat, so thank you for sharing them. I think when we talked a little bit about Lois having the Black Mercy and taking the brave stance to, or foolish stance to put on the Black Mercy herself. But I'm curious, Morgan, because this is a Supergirl podcast and there's quite a lot of Supergirl or Kara, maybe not Supergirl as of yet, on this show. And this, I don't know if it was a turning point for Lois and Kara's relationship, but what did you think about how Lois approached Kara in their first real kind of face-to-face meeting?
I do think this is somewhat of a turning point for Lois and Kara because I think Lois, at the very least, Kara hasn't really been aware of Lois as like a person who exists. But Lois has been kind of down on Kara, kind of suspicious of her, and obviously some of her actions haven't exactly endeared her to Lois. But
She did technically
she
kidnap
did
Clark. Lois is right about
kidnap Clark, so that's not great. But we know she had her reasons. She was mad. But I think this we start to see her turning a little bit, I think, on Kara, and understanding that Kara isn't like a villain and didn't do it on purpose. And I think that they end up working together pretty well in this episode, even if Jimmy gets to be the buffer in this one to keep them from like kind of killing each other. Jimmy kind of going in there and be like, no, Kara's like a good person, and Kara being like, ah, yes, Jimmy Flamebird, the leader of Earth.
Yes.
The leader of the planet. My favorite line, I think, in the whole episode was when Lois turned to Jimmy and said, what did you tell her? So good.
Jimmy technically did not tell her that. It was just something that Kara insinuated about him. So to be fair to Jimmy, he did not say that he was the leader of the planet in those so many words. Lois starts off pretty strong, I thought, in this episode. She calls Kara, quote, Clark's evil, malicious kidnapping, and then she sort of trails off. I would assume that she would have finished that off with cousin, maybe. And then she also calls Kara quote, the alien kidnapper, unquote. I did think that it was awesome that Kara kind of gave it back to her because when Lois calls Kara, quote, the one who kidnapped Clark, unquote, Kara says back to Lois, quote, you're the one in Cal's memories, the one who rejected him, unquote. So that really, I thought, put Lois in her place. She wanted to say bad things about Kara and the relationship that Kara has with Cal. But things have not been so great in Lois's relationship with Clark recently either. So I think them being able to air those grievances towards each other was maybe actually a good thing. They can get that out of the way. But I thought it was nice that towards the end of the episode, when things go south with Lois and Jimmy trying to infiltrate Brainiac's Kandor facility, that Kara actually saves the two of them twice, actually, rescues them from certain death. So hopefully whenever Lois gets out of the Black Mercy, maybe she will recognize that about Kara, that Kara did what she did to actually save them and not harm them. So I'm hoping that will be a turning point for their relationship, and that Lois won't be so ill with her once things
you kidnap
kind of
one person,
calm
right?
down.
Who amongst us?
So we got a little bit of Lois and Kara interacting in this episode. What did you think about the continuing and developing relationship between Kara and Jimmy Flamebird?
I thought it was really cute this episode. I see romance in their future. I see hearts everywhere. I thought this one was really cute. I like how she kind of, it felt like she was going to like confess some feelings to him.
Yes, she says that she admires him, but I don't think that's exactly what she wanted to say to him.
No, and then they hug. It's a really, if you're loving the Jimmy Flamebird.
Wait, give it to me again.
Jimmy Flamebird and Kara relationship. I think this is a really cute episode for the two of them working together, and you can see that they I like the little blushes that they have every time they talk to each other. It's really cute. I think that they've done a really good job with that relationship, especially considering that a lot of this season seems to be happening very quickly. In terms of they meet Kara really quickly, and then suddenly Clark is kidnapped, and then they're up in space. And we've had a couple episodes that have been just either just Clark in his kidnapped state, or just Lois and Jimmy as they work with Signor Mala and the brain to
Monsieur
Monsieur. I was
he's c'est le français.
ho, ho, ho. I made him Spanish. Monsieur, I'm sorry. But so we, it's the storyline is moving really quickly. So I think it's nice that it still feels like they're not necessarily rushing this sort of like relationship. Like a little bit of romance is like tossed in there, but it doesn't feel overwhelming to the story, or like it's like kind of taking over considering like what kind of situation they're in. It feels like the right amount of her being like, I think you're cute. Anyway, gotta go. And then like, gotta go save my cousin. Gotta fight to the death. I think it would be overwhelming if there was suddenly like a really big romantic storyline in there while they're up in the space station. Like Clark is maybe dying. If they were like having like a long conversation about their feelings, you'd be like, I feel like there's maybe like a better time for this. But I think there's always time for a good quick hug.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job slowly building that up over time. So we'll, I guess, continue to see more of Kara and Jimmy Flamebird as the series progresses in this season. Are there any other things that you wanted to mention about this episode that we have not talked about?
I'm trying to think like what else. I guess like the way that I thought it was interesting the way that they had Brainiac trying to basically kind of flip Clark by showing him memories and then sort of taking Lois and putting her into these like adversarial positions. So it started out as being like little memories that like hurt his feelings, and then it like smoothly, when that didn't really work and he was like, yeah, that's like friendship, and like I understand that like you're trying to get me my vulnerabilities, but like I love these people. That then Brainiac was like, well, what if Lois had a gun on you? And you're like, and he was like, I don't think this memory is real.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah, that escalated quick. At first I was like, are they like swapping Lois's dad for Lois in his memories and like trying to do that?
I thought about that. I thought about how she was acting very General Lane-esque, which, I mean, that could happen in real life. She could have a turning point and take on those fearful aspects that General Lane has about Kryptonians that make him dislike Superman. I mean, that very well could happen to Lois if they made different choices. But this Lois, I don't think that is going to happen. But theoretically, I mean, General Lane has, I think, some valid concerns about the Kryptonians.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's funny because at the end of last season, obviously Lois saw a couple of different alternate realities when she was with the League of Loises,
which is an amazing idea.
Amazing, great idea. A plus as always. But she saw some versions of like what would happen if Clark went bad, and I think it's a cool callback to that in this storyline that we're now seeing it directly because even though Clark hasn't gone bad, Brainiac has taken over his body and therefore can do all the things that Superman can do.
So do you think that Superman in that vision or that future that Lois saw, do you think that version of Superman is actually the Brainiac Superman?
It very well could be, or something similar could have happened in other universes, but that's actually interesting and makes me wonder if they'll go back to the League of Loises or that League of Lois idea to see like how they dealt with their bad Superman, because as we saw in this episode, they try to get out their silver bullet kind of thing with the kryptonite. It doesn't really work, and now they've lost the kryptonite and he has the kryptonite. That all seems bad.
It does seem bad though, and if I remember correctly, the reason that it doesn't work is because if Jimmy used it at that time, it would also affect Kara. So he has to stop using it on Brainiac, Cal Brainiac, in order to stop using it on Kara because it hurts her too. So yeah, they've lost the kryptonite that the League of Lois Lanes gave them. And I had a question for you. I didn't know what you thought about this, because at the end of the episode, Brainiac shoots Lois and Jimmy out of this triangle shape thing in space. And I wondered, I don't know if this is correct, but I was like, is that the Phantom Zone? Like, did he throw them into the Phantom Zone? But then Monsieur Mallah and the Brain rescue them in the spaceship. So I don't know. I thought that would be a cool idea if he could control the Phantom Zone somehow, and that we would get another interpretation of the Phantom Zone. But
that would be cool.
So
I mean, we could see how much construction had gone on in their Phantom Zone.
Yes. Did they
what
have
kind of sheds they have? What kind of filing systems even?
Did they have a break room in the office?
How many Dementors are in their Phantom Zone?
If you are new to Supergirl Radio, go back to our episodes on Supergirl season 6 in the early episodes of that season, because we had a lot of discussions about the Supergirl TV show's take on the Phantom Zone. So that is what that is in reference to. Old school Supergirl Radio listeners, they're going to know exactly what we're talking about. But yeah, so I wondered if it was the Phantom Zone. It could have just been a portal of some kind where he was throwing them into some unknown space and time situation. But that was something that I wondered. And I was like, did anybody else think that, or is it just me that thought that? It could very well be wrong. But I that did cross my mind.
It did. See, I was trying to figure out how that whole thing had kind of happened. And yeah, I was a little unclear on like how they got shot out of the spaceship as well.
Okay, so I guess to be determined on that until the next time we see another episode, next episode. I did want to say that I really enjoyed, in terms of the animation and the direction in this episode, I liked the intercutting sequence of Cal fighting Brainiac in the Black Mercy world, while simultaneously Kara was fighting Brainiac in reality. I thought that was very well done in terms of the cutting back and forth. So kudos to the show for that. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, and this was something that I kind of maybe I've been thinking over the course of the season, but had a real big thought about it in this episode, is that I really appreciate that this show, even though it's giving us a lot of Kara, and that's kind of what we here want, we would prefer more Kara. But this is a show called My Adventures with Superman. And so ultimately it should be his show. And so I've actually appreciated the fact that they've done all this cool stuff. They have these cool side characters, and they give Lois and Jimmy a lot to do. And they've done a really good job, in my opinion, with Kara and the way they've done all the storylines. But I think they've done a good job of keeping the focus on Superman. He doesn't feel like he's lost in this show, and that has not always been the case on Kryptonian TV shows, where sometimes the lead character was forgotten about or not utilized in any real way, and side characters, minor characters, kind of took over the show in some instances.
Sometimes it becomes more of an ensemble than you expect going in.
Yeah.
And that's surprising. So yeah, I do like that even though Kara is on the show, I don't feel like she takes anything away from it being about Superman. And she's a really good support character, and a good way to learn more about Superman's backstory and his history and his family through Kara's character, versus like Kara coming in and being like, I'm taking over now, it's my show, which would be fine with me.
We would be totally fine with
I want to just be clear that I would be fine with that.
If that's the direction that they choose to go in.
My Adventures with Supergirl.
Oh, spin-off idea. I like it. I think you could just keep building, constructing that universe, really building out the universe of My Adventures with Superman. I think that's a great idea, actually.
Spin it off.
But I just thought I would mention that, because I think that's something that sometimes can be hard to achieve when you start adding a lot of characters. And I think they've done a good job with keeping it Superman's story. So I think the strength of this show is that it really cares about the storylines and the characters. And I think it's still doing a really good job. I don't think there's ever been an episode where I was like, oh, they really screwed that one up. I think it's been pretty enjoyable so far. So kudos to the show for that. Do we have any thoughts before we go to some listener feedback? Oh, well, and before we do that, Brian has a good thought in the chat, because I think we've talked about this before about who do we think the My Adventures with Superman is referring to. It could be one person, it could be many people, it could be all of them. But
it could be all of us.
It could be all of us. We are going on
the adventures are inside of you the whole time.
But Brian makes the point that maybe the My Adventures now could also refer to Kara.
I like that. Let's get our girl in there.
So that's a fun thing to think about, is who is having these adventures with Superman. I guess final thoughts about this episode, just real quick, a wrap up of your thoughts, or what did you think about this episode?
As always, another good one. So far, their track record has been immaculate. This one was really good. I thought I was really on the edge of my seat the whole time. I felt like it was like a much longer episode. I remember I paused it kind of in the middle to do something, and I looked and I was like, oh my God, how did they pack that much into like 10 minutes? I think that they're doing a really good job of packing a lot of story and servicing a lot of characters in a limited amount of time. Each episode's like 20 something minutes, 22 minutes maybe at the maximum. And I really feel like I go on a whole journey every time. But yeah, I feel like the danger that they're in at the end of this episode really made me want to like smash the button on episode 9. I was like, Morgan, no, I'm holding out. But it is tough. So it's a fun week to week show, I will say, even though I can technically watch all the rest of the episodes.
You could
not to.
Again, I'm not going to fault you for it.
I'm watching it like everyone else did. But I think that the cliffhangers that they leave each episode on are really fun and really do make you want to immediately go to the next episode, which is great if you're binging, but is even better for a week to week release schedule like they had. So I think that they really built up the danger and the drama, and they left the episode in a really like juicy place where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next one. It's looking bad for our heroes.
I don't know how they're going to get out of this one. I would agree. The stakes have been upped. And that's what you should be doing in episode 8 of a 10 episode season. By this point, the stakes should be high going into the finale. So I don't know how much higher they can be. Maybe in the penultimate episode, they will get even higher. They will start reaching even higher. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited to see what Kara does moving forward into the finale, because now with Kal-El kind of out of the picture, and now Lois is out of the picture, she might have to step up even more and be the leader of this team that has developed. So I'm excited from a Supergirl standpoint to see how she handles what's going on. She probably has the most information out of all of them about Brainiac and how things operate. So I'm curious to see how Kara steps up moving forward. Well, we do have an email from a listener, so I think we should address what Mark has to say.
Yeah, so our email from Mark, he writes, the brain's brunch order. If the brain on My Adventures with Superman is anything like the version on Doom Patrol, then he's definitely the guy who, if a group goes out to brunch together and everyone else orders a waffle and coffee, he gets lobster Benedict and a couple of mimosas and expects the whole group to split the bill evenly. That's so fun. That makes me want to continue on with Doom Patrol even more, by the way. I know we watched the first episode for Patreon. Which, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, maybe you want to be one.
Patreon.com/Supergirl Radio.
Plug. But I was like, after I watched that episode, I was like, I gotta keep going, and then I didn't. But this makes me want to get back to that Doom Patrol watch and keep going, because that sounds hilarious.
You need to get to the episode where they mention that August 8th, 1980 is when humanity peaked. I feel like that's true. I feel like that's a good date to say that.
You're like, I wonder what happened that day.
So you have to at least get to that episode.
Nice.
So
That's awesome.
watching.
So Mark goes on to say, as for Jimmy having a net worth of 0 goes, I would forgive him for spending the money on ice cream and hot dogs. Some of his spending might be reckless, but those items are purchased in service of the most time-honored traditional way of parting a man from his money, the pursuit of romance. That is true, Mark. And to be fair to Jimmy, he probably didn't understand how many hot dogs she could eat. It's many more than he thought. Mark goes on to say, and hey, if Cara isn't worth tens of thousands of dollars of hot dogs, why are you even doing this podcast? I think that's a great question. That's a great question. Listen, I would get her as many hot dogs as she wanted, as many as I could afford to provide her.
Yes. Do I need to take out a loan from the bank? Maybe
a small business loan for hot dog consumption.
Yeah. So that is a good point. I think we all value Cara and hot dogs here, and so we would also purchase many hot dogs if she needed them from us.
That is a guarantee from this podcast to our fictional character, Cara Zor-El.
We love you in hot dogs. Okay, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Supergirl Radio. If you would like to contact us, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com like Mark did. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on X and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. If you like what we do, I am losing my voice slightly.
No.
We haven't even been podcasting that much, but I'm going to continue on. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. Supergirl Radio is part of the DC TV Podcast and Multiverse of Color Network, so go check those out. You can hang out with us as we go live and wired on Tuesday nights, usually on Tuesday nights. We've had to go on Wednesday nights a couple of weeks just per scheduling situations, but usually on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel, on the Supergirl Radio Facebook page. You're probably going to find us there if you want to come hang out with us and share your thoughts in the live and wired chat. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store. If you need some new DC or DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, magnets, tote bags, pins, phone cases, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
And since this episode of My Adventures with Superman featured Brainiac, we have some Brainiac designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
If you're a big fan of this, I don't know how you would describe Brainiac as a power-hungry, maniacal, robotic being. If you are a big fan of Brainiac, we do have some Brainiac designs in.
We got that merch. We got that merch for you.
Share your love for Brainiac. I should say that if you want to support us, but you're like, I've already got everything in the DC TV podcast TeePublic store, you can actually click on the link from our website and then go peruse TeePublic in other people's stores. So you don't have to stay in our store. You can buy other things outside of our store too, if you would like. So I just want to mention that for people who might be like, I've bought everything in your store. I have all the things. You can go outside the store. If
there's other stores.
There are other things that you can check out as well. We would also like to thank our Supergirl Radio patrons. These are our Legion of Super sponsors for supporting the Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Majuba, Zachary, Annie, and Rachel. And if you would also like to become a Legion of Super sponsor, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. On the Patreon recently, I shared some things from my trip to Ireland. Morgan and I are going to be reviewing Twisters this week.
S at the end. Twisters.
Yes, you know it's different because they added an S.
Not just one Twister anymore, baby.
So we're going to be talking about Twisters and doing a movie review over there. So definitely come hang out with us. If you want more Supergirl Radio, we've got some of that at the Supergirl Radio Patreon. If you would like, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of more Supergirl Radio, I did want to bring up this question earlier in the chat. Stanley asks, are you going to watch Crisis Part 3?
Well, we have to find out what's going to happen to Psycho Pirate.
It's like we're really invested in Psycho Pirate's storyline. Big fans, but not fans, because he's crazy.
Yeah, he is a psycho.
He is a psycho, and he likes to dress like a pirate. So we like his fashion mostly. Has the third part come out?
It has.
Oh.
So I think the plan, Stanley, is we are going to finish up My Adventures with Superman season 2, which we have episodes 9 and 10, and then maybe we'll do Crisis Part 3 then after that, and then maybe we'll read some comics, possibly.
Maybe then it's comic time, baby.
I did get asked to do a Supergirl the movie 40th anniversary Dragon Con panel.
Ooh.
So a Dragon Con is fast approaching in a way that is frustrating.
Oh my God, so fast.
It's coming up within a month. So I'm like, I was not mentally prepared for this. So I have to get mentally prepared. But so that will be coming up as well. Hopefully, if that goes through, we'll have an episode where you can listen to the Supergirl the movie panel.
Now, are you going to make the panelists debate the pros and cons of the movie?
So no, I would not do that to them, because only the people I feel who could face that pressure in a really dignified and strong way could face that
maybe
challenge.
had put together a PowerPoint presentation.
Your PowerPoint it's still one of the best PowerPoints ever made.
I worked really hard on it.
It showed. It really did. So no, I don't know that there's going to be a formal debate structure, but
could you imagine if these poor people just thought they were going to be on a normal panel and you're like, you have a minute?
Well, that could liven it up. I think it actually would be very interesting for the people watching that panel. But I anticipate I will be one of the only people there to defend the film, because that's usually my position, which I'm happy to do so. I still maintain to this day the Supergirl the movie is a very faithful adaptation of the Silver Age Supergirl. So that is how I will approach my defense. So in a somewhat similar way but not really to our debate on Supergirl Radio, which if you have never listened to it or watched it, because it is on video, we did do a debate about is Supergirl the movie worth watching? So we did take opposite sides of that that question, and I think it turned out to be a very good discussion and pretty funny. So I think you should check it out if you never have. So we have a lot of episodes coming up, and we've debated about whether or not to get back into Rebirth and finish Rebirth. So we've got and maybe start the Peter David Supergirl run. Maybe that's in the cards, because I really need Morgan to read the Peter David run, because it is bonkers and wacky and
I'm excited about that.
It's great. I found that I enjoyed it by the time I was finished with it. So yeah, we have a lot of episodes that we will be doing, and Crisis Part 3 will be one of them coming up. All right. Well, if you would like to catch up with me on the interwebs, you can follow me on Vero True Social, which is my preferred social media platform. You can find me there at 𝙬𝙪𝙾. That's where I share what I'm listening to, what I'm watching. So I need to put on there how I've been watching a lot of Titanic documentaries and rewatched Titanic recently, because I went to the Titanic Belfast experience, which is pretty incredible. If you're ever in Belfast, go to that Titanic. They say it's not a museum, but it's definitely a museum. So it's fantastic. You should go. You can find me on Instagram at the Derby Kid. You can see some pictures that I share there. I recently shared some pictures I took of Ireland from my family vacation there. You can also find me on my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I'm going to be working on some new content for that, some interviews I've done with some other fans. So that is my hope, that I can maybe have that launch in the second week of August at the very latest. So I'll be working on that this weekend. And you can also follow my brother and me on our travel blog stuff. So on social media, we are at Oasis Broom. Also on YouTube, you can find us at Oasis Broom. And I just released a video today of footage that I shot in Ireland. So you can see 4 minutes of
Ooh.
footage that I shot, and I was pretty proud of it. I think it's a very good depiction of what we saw and what we did in Ireland. So if you're interested in what we did, you can go check that out.
Neat. I'm gonna definitely check that out.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. You can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, which is at the Legendary Ladies on YouTube and Instagram. And this week, I think we're going to be talking about San Diego Comic-Con, which I wasn't at, but my two co-hosts were. So they're going to take me on a magical journey through what Comic-Con was like this year. And I'm excited to hear about all of the stuff that I didn't see while mindlessly scrolling on Twitter and watching the Olympics. I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that you just kind of couldn't get from just little clips that you see from out in the field. A lot of like cosplay. I know Kat did some panels.
Oh, nice.
I believe she was a moderator for a panel with Mariko Tamaki. So that's pretty cool. So I'm excited to hear about their convention experiences.
Yeah, I did not see a lot of news except for the Robert Downey Jr., Dr. Doom.
Yeah,
stuff.
that was the biggest thing I saw, is that they're paying him like a $80 million.
They backed that truckload of money up.
They just backed it up right to his house.
But I did have friends that also went to San Diego Comic-Con. Not sure how they got tickets, because isn't it very hard to get? There's like a lottery system, isn't it?
I have never gone as a normal person. I've only ever gone as press. So I don't really know how the system works. It's honestly, it's kind of touch and go for press sometimes. You're like, did they approve my badge? But it seems like the system to go as like a normal person is so complicated that I perhaps will never go as a normal person, because I start reading the rules, and like you have to put in for, I think it's a lottery system, and then I'm like, that seems hard.
Yeah, if Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow has a presence there next year, I think we should get you there.
Maybe. Then it's important for me to go, for journalism,
for the podcast. Yes,
for the public. We got to get out there. I see Mind the Gap said Comic-Con had some My Adventures with Superman information.
Oh, good. If it's spoilery, I don't think we want to know. At least I don't. Morgan doesn't mind spoilers too much.
I believe I did see that there's going to be a season 3. I think that was confirmed. So
yes, I think I forgot to put that in a news section, but there is.
But guess what?
Yes, but there is a season 3. Maybe we can talk about
news.
We can talk about that officially after we finish season 2, and we can maybe
talk about we can news breakdown.
Yes. So we'll dig into that. So we'll have to look into the San Diego Comic-Con stuff and see if there's any news updates that we need to know. So very good to know. So yeah, San Diego Comic-Con surprisingly had some friends who went, so that was exciting for them. So I'll have to hear about that and try to learn how they got there. How did you get those tickets? So we'll have to check that out. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for our plugs and for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And we think Lois should let Mala and the Brain make those new updates to the ship. They're probably going to be great.
I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's going to be good.
What could go wrong?
Good, actually. Yeah.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is 𝙈𝙾 𝘼𝙙 Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!